Boise State star wide receiver Eric McAlister has entered his name into the transfer portal, and it's going to be an interesting situation to monitor because he's one of the better wide receivers in the group of five, and he will definitely get a lot of attention from the Power Five. It sounds like head coach Andy Avalos has indicated that there are teams already pursuing him even before he went into the transfer portal. But he's a big play wide receiver, a big body wide receiver at 6'4", 200 pounds that will be on the list of a lot of teams to get his services to come to their team. And today we take a look at 10 teams that will pursue him in the transfer portal. We start with a team that's going to lose some talent at the wide receiver position, but also could return quite a bit as well, depending on how this season ends up. Washington Huskies have a good track record, and they've had a trio of wide receivers this year that have been really fun to watch. Kalen DeBoer has done a great job of putting Michael Penix Jr. in great positions to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. With the trio of wide receivers they have in Romeo Odunze, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Pollock, Washington's obviously had one of the best passing attacks in college football. I think McAlister adds to that, but it feels like Odunze is going pro, and then one or maybe both of McMillan and Polk will be going pro as well. So that leaves some vacancies for McAlister to fit into. I think that like I said, he's a big play wide receiver. He brings a big body that maybe replaces Odunze, given that he's most likely gone. I think that that's a good replacement for a guy like Odunze, who's been a big playmaker. Now, obviously, it comes down to who's going to be the quarterback throwing them the football. But I feel like when you're going to a Kalen DeBoer offense, you are in good hands. Going along those same lines, Mike Norvell's Florida State Seminoles appeared to have two potential openings when it comes to the 2024 season, given that I think everybody expects Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman to be gone after this year. That leaves two wide receiver positions that need to be filled, and McAlister could be one of those players that steps up. When you look at what they got in Keon Coleman, I think you get a replacement essentially in terms of size in Eric McAlister, 6'4", 200 pounds, like we said. And I think that you're looking at a Florida State team that needs some weapons going into next year. Jordan Travis has done a great job at quarterback, but the wide receivers have made a big difference as well. And losing both of those guys would hurt. You could at least mitigate some of those losses and lessen some of the damage done by getting a guy like McAlister. And we know that Florida State is no stranger to adding via the transfer portal, so that would definitely be something I would keep an eye on for him to head out east. Notre Dame is interesting because of the academic standards, but I think that if McAlister can fit into what they need, Notre Dame would be very much in the running to add his services. When you look at the passing attack, this is a group that obviously still needs to take a step forward. I think when you look at Jane Greathouse, what he could do, Chris Tyree could be back next year. I think you have potential in the passing attack, even though Sam Hartman won't be back. You have potential to be a solid group, and we keep saying that about Notre Dame, but I think that adding a guy like Eric McAlister gives you a certified weapon, a proven weapon that can help in that regard. Again, McAlister is going to get a lot of Power Five attention. I don't think that should be a surprise. Oklahoma should be one of those teams that's in the running. Again, another team that is not afraid to use the transfer portal. Oklahoma has a serious need for a number one guy. With Andrew Anthony going down, I think that really hurt them because you don't really have a wide receiver one that could step up. You have a bunch of guys that are really talented, guys like Jalil Farouk, but you need a wide receiver one, a big body that can make plays downfield. McAlister would give Jeff Lebby's system that. And I think that him and you throw in with what Jackson Arnold could be, assuming Dylan Gabriel's gone, then I think that you're looking at an offense that has a lot of potential already. And then you add McAlister to make that even better. When you look at what Billy Napier has done so far at Florida, and you look at his time at Louisiana, he knows what to do with a playmaker like Eric McAlister. I think he'd be a great fit in what Billy Napier is trying to do offensively. And when you look at the wide receiver talent that they have, he gives them yet another young player that is hungry to prove that he belongs and prove that he can be a star. When you look at the wide receiver talent they have right now, I think he fits in really well. I think that he gives whoever plays quarterback another weapon to utilize downfield, a big play wide receiver, a big body wide receiver, like we said. And I think he fits well in what Florida wants to do. There are some underrated teams like Oklahoma State that could be in the running for Eric McAlister. I think when you look at Oklahoma State, they don't necessarily get the bigger names in the transfer portal, but I think that this is someone they could go after heavy. And right now, I don't think that there's a proven number one guy for Oklahoma State in terms of wide receiver. I think you have some potential, but adding a guy like Eric McAlister would give you another weapon to utilize. And quarterback situation is just kind of like others where you don't really know what you're going to have in 2024. But given a guy like Eric McAlister, you can find a way to elevate your offense by having a talented player like him. And I think that Mike Gundy's done a great job of leaning into what his team's identity is. But you can get back to kind of those Brandon Whedon days. You look at the Buzz Bryant, the Justin Blackmon days. By getting a guy like Eric McAllister, he fits that bigger wide receiver that we've seen Oklahoma State have in the past, and it'd be really fun to see if they can get back to that kind of an era where they have that big play wide receiver who just torches everyone downfield. If there's a Power Five team in need of a wide receiver one more than Penn State, I'd love to see it, and that concludes this year. I think Penn State's really struggled without a guy that is their certified number one. I think they have guys that technically fit that, but when you look at their talent, it's more like wide receiver 2 and 3. They need a wide receiver one. They need a big body wide receiver that can make plays downfield, stretch the field vertically, and give Drew Aller a chance to showcase his talent. Aller has a great arm. I think he has great arm talent and a strong arm that can get balls down the field, but you don't have someone that can stretch the defense like they need them to. And I think that's the missing link that they have right now to address. And that's what they're going to need going into 2024. McAllister gives them that and opens up the offense tremendously. Oregon's on here with the assumption that you're going to lose Troy Franklin to the NFL. And I think that there's a need for a wide receiver one to fill his place. Now, I don't think McAllister is going to have the speed of Troy Franklin, but he has size to make up for it. I think that gives the Oregon Ducks a big body wide receiver they've needed at downfield. And I think it opens up the offense for everybody else to step up. When you look at what Tez Johnson's been able to do because of Troy Franklin, it's because you're able to stretch the field vertically. And Eric McAllister's done a great job of that at Boise State. I think he's just got kind of tired of being the only guy in the passing attack, and the quarterback position wasn't exactly playing itself out. When you go to Oregon, you at least will have to get passes from a better talented player, more talented players than you had at Boise State. So even though there might be a new starter in place, you at least have some guys that could be more consistent than what Boise State had to offer. UCLA was just kind of fun because Chip Kelly knows how to utilize big play wide receivers, and they're not afraid to go in the transfer portal. When you look at the talent that they've accumulated, a lot of it has been from the transfer portal, and it's been really fun to watch. It also could give you an opportunity to convince Dante Moore that he needs to stay. I think that's a big question right now, is if Dante Moore is going to stay at UCLA. So getting a guy like McAllister shows that you're serious about elevating the passing attack. You're serious about keeping him in Los Angeles, and you're making sure that you're not only getting a good wide receiver, but you also keep the quarterback that will help them in the future. An underrated one, probably the most underrated option of this list, is SMU. And while this may not seem like the most enticing one for Eric McAllister to choose, they are going to the ACC, so that's definitely still a Power Five team that you can utilize. You also have a rising star in Preston Stone, and you have a great play caller in Rhett Lashley. Now, you have to assume that Rhett Lashley is staying at SMU, but assuming that he is, then I think you're in great hands with this SMU team. I think that they have a ton of talent, and I don't think anybody's hit more in the transfer portal than the SMU Mustangs. Rhett Lashley's done a great job of getting his staff to identify talent, getting that talent to produce, and Eric McAllister could be just the latest of that group. I'm curious to see who you guys think he's going to go to, what team he will choose. And obviously, it's going to be a while before we find out. But Eric McAllister definitely has plenty of options going into 2024.